have now completed the first layer of color on our painting. And to kind of get the tutorial for that, you can watch part 1 of this video. And so for part 2, now what? Now what do you do? So this is a stage where I would say nearly every single time I get here myself, I go through an existential crisis. And just to be fair, like, that doesn't mean I don't know what I'm doing. Of course I know what I'm doing. I do this all the time. I've been doing it for like almost 20 years. Almost 20 years. So it's a long time to be doing something. So I know exactly what I'm doing. And yet there is something that always kind of comes to me that I call into question everything I've ever known, you know? And I think that's not a bad thing. So if you are an artist and you are painting and you kind of get yourself into one of those places where you're like, I don't know what I'm doing, you know, I think that's good. I think Alex Gray calls it sacred doubt. And I think there's something important to kind of really feel that and acknowledge it and then move through, you know, but that kind of minor overwhelming existential doubt and insecurity in any moment of a painting, I think means that you're continually challenging yourself and that you are growing, you know, because if you're like, oh, I can do this with my eyes closed, personally, that gets boring. So I find that I enjoy that because that's when I know that what I'm doing is still fresh, even though I have been doing this for such a long time. And it keeps it fresh and new, and there's still things to explore. And so just want to say that having an existential crisis in your painting isn't necessarily a bad thing. Again, it just means you're constantly challenging yourself and you're growing. And I think that is personally what life is about, isn't it? Well, one of the things. So, that being said, this is the stage that it happens for me all the time. We're like, oh my God, I have so much left to do, or, oh my God, there's just, now what? So I'm going to tell you now what. Basically, after this stage, it's very simple, and it's also very complicated. As in most good things. It's very simple because I'm going to just tell it to you right now. You do a shadow, you do a shadow glaze, you do a highlight glaze, you do a harmonizing glaze, and then you do a highlight. And generally speaking, you'll be done with your painting. So actually when you get to this stage, the first layer of color over everything, over all of your underpainting, it's a little terrifying because you have obliterated that absolutely beautiful blue, opalescent, stunning, what looks like a complete painting. And now it looks like crap, to some degree in comparison, right? You're like, my work, where did it go? Well, it's in there and you can 100% see it because all I've done is put color on it. And you're very, like I haven't done much. And it looks like something. So it's all there, right? It's just, there's still work to be done. And that work is pretty simple. Like I said, you just do a shadow glaze, a highlight glaze, a harmonizing glaze, and another highlight. And, but yet, as I say that, while it's very formulaic in one sense, it also depends on your painting. And there's, every painting is slightly different. Every painting is very different. And every painting requires something slightly different or something very different. And, but that's the general framework, right? So that's what we're going to do. We're going to do a shadow glaze and a highlight glaze. Sometimes I do these at the same time. Sometimes they happen on different days because depending on how much time I have. and then a harmonizing glaze, which is very important. You don't want to end up with what Amanda Sage calls rainbow vomit, which just means it's like all over the place and it doesn't make any sense, right? The colors are all over the place. And harmonizing glazes work with shadow extremely well. Brings the entire painting together. You'll see what I mean. I'll probably do that as its own separate video. And then the kind of final highlight glaze. So we're going to break this up into, this is just going to be the shadow video. And then we'll dive into the highlight video, probably. Those might be together. We'll see how it goes. And then we'll do the harmonizing glaze as its own video, and kind of the final highlights as its own as well, which I have a couple of these already, but it's good to do again because there's never, there's always more to say and there's always more to learn. So with that, I hope you enjoy this, and let's dive into some shadows. So I have an entire video on how to glaze intense colors like red. So I'm not going to kind of get into that particularly here. We're just going to focus on how this is going from the first glaze of color to the shadow. So what I'm doing here is I am glazing in the shadow with a darker red. So this is just basically a cadmium red mixed with a bit of either Van Dyke brown and a little bit of permanent rose. So it's a nice, rich, deep red. And so I'm just glazing that in where the shadow is. So you see what's happening is the second I do that, that first layer of color becomes my medium tone and highlight, as it were, here, right? So I am just adding in extra color to the shadow, and the thing that's already there, the color that's already there, becomes the medium and the highlight tone. And the highlight, of course, comes from your underpainting, right? So your underpainting never goes away. It just changes its kind of character because of the color that you're adding to it. So you are preserving all of that beautiful work you did, of course, and it is what is shining through. And so the reason it looks like that is because, you know, you have spent all of that time in your underpainting building up that highlight. And so as I'm just adding in the shadow, as I'm adding in a deeper color into the shadow, just in a very, you know, this doesn't have a lot of pigment. It's a glaze just like the first glaze I did it. It's just a slightly darker red than the first time I did it. But because this is now the second time, the red and any other kind of intense color starts, you know, it's like cumulative effect, right? You're kind of layering over and over and over, and it builds up. And that's, you know, unlike when you're doing, you know, just a direct painting, you would just kind of paint that color right away. But this has something in it when you look at it in person. It's very difficult to kind of transmit exactly why you do all this kind of work in the Mische Technique over digital and video. But when you see these paintings in person, they have an odd kind of glow from within. That's the only way I can explain it. It's hard to put your finger on, but you just know that there's something different about the way it is painted. It is because you're not just putting the color on, you're layering that color on. So there is so much different kind of color that is coming through, and your eye reads it in a different way than if it was just a flat color. And so it has this strange inner luminescence that is slightly inexplicable. And so, you know, not only does that underpainting contribute to that, but these layers of color glazes is what is contributing to that, you know, that odd luminescence. So, I'm also using this glaze here to kind of do a bit of detail. So you saw that I'm kind of putting in parts of the fingers, you know, the wrinkles of the skin, different kinds of things like that, that while they are in the underpainting, I am adding in that shadow, right? And so it's just bringing them to life a bit more. And so you kind of do some of that detail work in this place. So you can see I'm using the exact same brush over the entire piece. So, while I am doing detail work, I am just using the kind of thin side of the rounded, filbert brush that I'm using here, which I love because they do everything. I can do my glaze and I can do some detail all at the same time without switching brushes. That's a win. And so kind of doing the detail of the hand here, I am, both utilizing the fact that I am kind of building up the shadows of the folds of the skin, but I'm also adding in that extra bit of detail that I need. I'm going to just continue on adding in this exact same color throughout the rest of the body. So, thinking of, where the shadows are cast, of course, but, I'm not reinventing the wheel, right? Like, it's not like I'm doing this for the first time. So while I am looking at my reference, always look at your reference. I am looking at my reference, of course, but, all of this work has been done before. That's what your underpainting was for. So I'm really now, for the first time, glazing in the opposite, the shadow of everything I've been doing, since I've started the painting, which is focus on the highlights. So this is where the counter, counter tone, I guess I could call it, comes in. So all of that highlight, all of that kind of shadow that naturally built up through the 3-color process of the underpainting, with the first color glaze, you just kind of bring that to life, right? But now this is the first time we're doing those shadows. So, instead of painting, it's simple, right? Instead of painting the highlights like we have been doing, you paint the shadow. And so here I am just painting in the kind of viney quality of the tree. And then this, more abstract kind of tree area at the top with those different plants in, right? So I'm just kind of putting in those shadows now. I'm building up that color. Dark colors, as I have mentioned many a time on all my videos, take a couple more glazes than pale colors for obvious reasons. But dark colors also have such an interesting luminosity because of those layers of glazes. So again, you don't want to just rush in here with too much pigment. You want to keep it glazy because, you want to build up that color with more glazes rather than with thicker pigments. You just have a much richer, beautiful color than you would otherwise. So here I did a before and after. You can see what it was like before, and this is what it was like what's after. So I did the leaves, I did the skin, I did the flowers. You can see how it is much richer, brings out those colors, brings out the distinctions. And we still have a bit to go, right? Because the next step is highlights. So here I am doing all of the shadows on this amazingly bizarre flower. And, you're just building out the shapes. You're looking at what those shapes are. I'm looking at my reference, of course. I've got my photo of this right next to me. And I am putting in the color on top of the shadow that was created by the underpainting, right? The shadow that was created by the underpainting is what I am glazing right now in all of their local colors. And so it's going to instantly just give everything, all of your work, all of your you know, that you've been doing with this, with your piece, all of that suddenly has like a home in a way. It starts looking like something. You're like, oh, there it is. You know, see, as you can see right here, it is just with the shadow glaze. If you remember what it looked like when we started, it looked all right. But now with the shadows, and I haven't added any highlight at all, right? It already looks like it's taking shape. Finally, here it is. So this is such a gratifying stage because it finally feels like you're getting somewhere. You know, it feels like you've put in the work, you've done all this stuff, and now here it is. Your painting is starting to really like, you know, glitter metaphorically. It's like, ooh, here we go. And so this is very exciting. You can see all of that. A shadow just gives it extra oomph. You're now ready to take on those highlights. That's going to be in the next video. And we're going to talk about, you know, just how to add those highlights, and then the harmonizing glaze and final highlights is kind of your last step. So I'm very excited to share those with you. Let me know in the comments if you've got any questions. As always, thank you for being here. Like, subscribe, and share. I'll see you soon.